Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for joining this webinar. All right. As we wait for everybody to join, why don't you drop in the chat where you're logging in from? Okay, Belgium. Yes, I'm also based out of our headquarters in Belgium. Nice. Nice. Welcome, everybody. I see more people are joining. We're just taking a few minutes to make sure that we're not leaving anybody behind. Malaysia. Okay, that's quite late for you. Thank you for joining. Austria, welcome. Okay, I hope you guys are also getting some good weather like we are at the moment in Belgium. I don't know how the weather is like for you, Majid, or for you, Carlos, where you are, because we are all joining from different parts of the world.
Well, SPK is in the Santa Cruz, Scotts Valley space, so we're starting to see beach weather.
Okay, I don't want to say I'm jealous, but okay. Toronto, welcome. All right, so I think we're set to start. So let's begin. Thank you, everybody, for joining from all around the world. Welcome to this webinar. We're going to talk all about zero missed tickets, how MSPs hit their almost 100% SLA compliance with ITSM integration. So before we dive in, I want to introduce who I have with me in this webinar. This is a joint webinar between SPK and MSP and also Exalate. Here we have Carlos, the VP of Engineering from SPK. I pass it over to you, Carlos, for a quick introduction.
Thanks, Manoush. Yes, VP of Engineering at SPK. We're a woman-owned company based in Scotts Valley. We're not your average MSP. We're the MSP for engineering teams, is what we like to say. We handle all the usual IT stuff, but our real strength is empowering product development and DevOps to move faster and smarter. We specialize in supporting engineering in highly regulated industries like medical device, aerospace, and automotive.
Amazing. Thank you, Carlos.
Sure.
And we have Majid, the head of support and services at Exalate here. So over to you, Majid, for a quick intro.
Thank you. And hi, everyone. Very nice that you all joined us here today. So I work at Exalate and I've been here around 4 years. We work in the integration space, as it says. So Exalate is a bidirectional synchronization tool that links up different ITSM tools together to basically bridge that communication gap that teams usually have. So yeah, pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Majid. And myself, as the moderator today, I'm the head of marketing at Exalate. And for the past few years, I think I've been working with our MSP clients to understand their use cases better and to see what pain points we can actually solve with the ITSM integration for them. A very quick housekeeping rules and the agenda. So please use the chat to chat with the other attendees and drop in your thoughts and everything. If you have any questions you would like us to take care of at the very end of the webinar in our live Q&A, please drop them in the Q&A tab so we don't miss them in the chat. And we will send you a recording of this webinar after this webinar is done and is processed. So let's get into it. As for the first question, Carlos, that is for you. I understand that MSP is like you already gave us some context. I understand it's like a very broad term to use for any sort of companies that provide some sort of services for their end clients. But what does SPK actually does for their customers, for the end clients?
We are, like I said, engineering experts relative to working with developers. And we're all ex-developers ourselves, if you will. And so we found a niche where traditional IT teams who weren't as familiar with traditional development, whether it's mechatronics, embedded software, or other things like that. We come from that cloth. And so we took that and expanded out into the world of supporting our engineering teams. And so this is sort of our secret sauce, if you will, because we really understand what the developers need, QA needs, compliance people need. And we partner with several ISPs like yourself, industry software vendors, ISVs, I meant to say, that provide like the best-in-class tools. We provide a portfolio of that. We help establish those processes, and essentially trying to get our customers to be able to build products faster, time to market with higher quality.
Mm-hmm. So what is this communication or collaboration path like between you and the clients that you provide all of these services to? Because I understand that becomes like very critical and very important for you.
Yeah, so the support channels is where all the real talk happens. So clients typically reach out through a few main channels like email, support portal, like Jira Service Management or Zendesk, or sometimes just call in the help desk. Some MSPs also use chat tools like Slack or Teams. Underneath it is the ticketing system. This is the backbone of the relationship. Everything is tracked through the ticketing. Our clients log issues, requests through MSP, triages. We assign and track everything. And then we also set up monitoring and escalation paths. So if something bad happens, like a system outage or incident, we have our communication paths and mitigations ready to kick in. And then there is project work, which is more day-to-day support. MSPs often help with the bigger projects like migrating to the cloud or deploying new tools or setting up compliance frameworks. These typically involve a project manager and more of a collaborative back and forth flow of data communication for planning and execution.
Mm-hmm. I see. Majid, you mentioned that you have been in this integration like domain for a while now, and you have been helping with like a lot of implementation, I understand. So, what type of like collaboration or communication challenges have you seen MSPs face when they deal with all of these disconnected work management or ITSM tools?
Yeah, so just building upon what Carlos was referring to, underneath all these communication channels, there's actually essentially a ticketing system which is used to track work and do reporting off and all that nice stuff. Now, if you envisage this from the end user perspective who wants to reach out to an MSP to get a service delivered or a project done or whatever, uh, how would they do it? They would either log in to SPK's Jira Service Management tool and then create like a project there, and then they would need constant follow-ups into the portal. It's just a layer of inconvenience that gets added. The so the challenge really becomes like real-time actual data sync, right? So you don't need to log into multiple vendors. You don't need to. So you basically sit in your own tool and kind of integrate with the MSP. The inefficiency that increases as a result of these multiple portals is there to see. And then there's a whole copy paste approach. So you're collecting things from different email threads, putting them into a ticket for an MSP so that they have all the logs and everything in order to be able to deal with it. And at the end of the day, when you want to report of this data, this becomes a nightmare as well because it's all siloed. Some of it is siloed in the MSP space, some of it is siloed in your email inboxes. And then creating coherent reports out of that at the end of the day becomes really a nightmare. So those are some of the common challenges that you see on a day-to-day basis, really.
Mm-hmm. Does that resonate with you as well, Carlos?
Oh, absolutely. You covered all those things. I would add like another main point about having silos is around incident resolution. So if a customer outage happens and the systems don't talk to each other, you may not be getting the escalation paths clean across your portfolio of customers. You're going to be suffering that. You're going to be suffering the SLAs for that. It could hurt the relationship for the clients. And other things in there that we like to provide are reports. So when you're using disconnected tools and things don't really work well, our executives like to see trends and metrics and things like that. And so being able to build this thing across our clients, it helps us as a business to manage our own back end. So, bottom line, if you have a siloed system, as we just mentioned, you are getting a fragmented view. And that doesn't exactly build your confidence when you're trying to make sure things are working as fast as possible and as accurate as possible.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I think we discussed like a few use cases here as well. I think it makes sense, Majid, for us also to go over some like real world use cases that you also like helped implement. So if you agree, I'll just like go to the next.
For sure. So there are a number of possibilities of how you set up the integration within your own workspace, and it's all going to make sense in your business. Basically, you need to get the best out of that integration. I've laid out 3 use cases out here, which are pretty common ones we come across. So the first one is for a managed security service provider, right? So that's a service provider who is monitoring the infrastructure, the critical infrastructure for vulnerabilities, for threats, for all sorts of things. Now, they usually have a lot of monitoring tools, automated systems that are feeding into a central hub, which can be a different any ITSM tool. So let's assume that this MSSP is using a ServiceNow instance where all the monitoring tools are feeding alerts into, right? Totally in an automated manner. Now, what happens from out here is that those alerts also need to be communicated in real time to the end customer for whom you're monitoring the actual infrastructure, right? They need to know that, okay, there is a vulnerability and what, if anything, you are doing to mitigate that. Because it's not just about raising the vulnerability, it's about the reaction as well. How are you containing it? How are you dealing with it? Are you isolating systems? Are you disconnecting things? So once all these alerts come into the MSSP, they need to be fanned out to the different clients. If you can just click, Manush. Yeah, so all those different customers will probably be using their own ITSM tools, right? Again, this bridges the gap of the end user having to log into the MSSP systems to kind of check what's going on. So all these alerts get fanned out to the relevant customers, and then that communication happens in real time. So all the mitigation and all the containment steps that have been done by the MSSP are there for the end users to see in real time in their own systems. Now, yeah, just what Carlos referred to, think about reporting in this aspect. So the MSSP can report off their end, their own metrics, and the customer now has the real data with timestamps and with all the actions taken at the end of the incident to kind of report off it and do a post-mortem. So it's a very common use case that we come across. Now, the second one, if we move along, is the project management one. Now, again, there's so many different ways to kind of do it, but a generic one that we come across often is that the end users, again, think about them using their own systems at the bottom of the screen. Now they create a work order basically with high-level requirements. It can be in a form of an epic, and that gets sent to the MSP for action, right? For the actual service delivery for the implementation. How the MSP works is then it divides that work obviously into stories, tasks, subtasks, whatever. And those are then communicated back to the client for the real-time monitoring. If you can click through, please. So once the MSP receives that high-level requirement or a very vague, big project item, that gets broken down into logical tasks, which can actually be implemented by engineers. And those tasks can then be filtered down back to the client. Again, think about visibility here. So the customer at the end of the day has very clear view of the tasks that are created in order to achieve that work order. And they get real-time progress updates as well that, okay, 3 are moving, 1 is blocked, this is blocked due to the dependency. So really like nice real-time workflow here. The last one we have is basically an extension of this same one essentially, but start thinking about this from the central Jira in the middle of your screen where the MSP is kind of working, right? Now, on the left side of the screen, either the customers can directly log into that portal, into the central Jira and create tickets. But as I explained earlier, there's a bit of friction in that, right? So the customers working in their own environments, in their own ITSM tools, kind of automatically send tickets to the MSP. Now, this MSP is kind of using the central Jira only for triage, mainly for triage. It has different teams internally or externally working in different platforms on the right side. Like the developers can be working in Azure, the support can be working in Zendesk. Now, the central Jira kind of just triages what the priority is and who it needs to go out to. And then the communication happens from, let's pick Zendesk. So an engineer updates a Zendesk ticket and that flows via the MSP to the end user's actual ITSM tool of choice. So you get like a three-way integration going. So yeah, and as I keep saying, there's so many of these that it's unbelievable. I wonder if, Carlos, any of these resonate with you. Are SPK using any iteration of these use cases?
Oh, absolutely. So all the above. So like a lot of MSPs, we support multiple clients. Each one's using a different system. Some are Jira, some are ServiceNow, others are Zendesk. Our internal team for the traditional stuff was using JSM to track all our work. So at first this created a mess. So if a client raised a ticket in their own system, we had to manually create it in our Jira on our side, as you mentioned, back and forth with updates, copying, pasting between tools, emailing screenshots that slowed everything down, introduced a lot of risks, and things were falling through the cracks. So we decided to solve that by using Exalate, which allowed us to connect our Jira Service Management instance directly with our client systems without forcing anyone to switch tools, which is very important. Um, Now when the client logs in using their tool, it automatically syncs over to our Jira project. And this is not JSM. When we're doing projects, as you have in the third use case there, that is exactly the same use case. Any updates that we make on our end, comments, attachments, status changes are automatically pushed back into their system and vice versa. And the beauty is that everyone's just staying in their comfort zone. Our team works in Jira and their team can work in their JSM, or if they're using a different system like Service Desk or Zendesk, they can stay in their system. And underneath the hood, we only set up custom sync tools or rules, so only certain specific fields and comments and statuses are shared, which is really super important for security and compliance. We also automated things like priority escalation and SLA tracking, so the process is smooth and auditable. So since rolling this out, we're resolving issues faster, communications way cleaner, our clients feel way more connected, and they're seeing some results in real time. In terms of measuring ROI is really critical for operational efficiency and customer impact. Some of the metrics that we look at, time to resolution, we've seen anywhere from 25 to 40% reduction in the TTR after integrating Escalate into our systems across multiple clients because the tickets are routed and updated in real time. And then manual handoff reduction, that's a big win. 70 to 90% fewer email pings, just poor communication back and forth. We have bilateral syncing, so that really helps that. SLA compliance, we typically see somewhere from 20 to 30% improvement in SLA adherence due to the real-time visibility and cross-system escalation triggers. This is important. If something drops in and we have to push it out to multiple customers, XLA allows us to have that capability to push those things out. And then, just onboarding time for new clients. We apply a template, and we're going to talk about that, I think. But we've seen around 20 to 50% faster integration time since we can apply and customize a template Escalate configuration. So all these things have really helped our bottom line and has helped really work with the customers successfully.
Amazing. You already answered like a lot of questions, Carlos, that I think our attendees might have, like the communication problems and how ITSM can like solve that. Majid, is there anything you want to add there from your perspective as well?
No, so the benefits are quite clear, as I said, like for any MSP that we work with day in, day out as well. I think the win-win situation is absolutely clear, right? So the end goal here is an automated system that does real-time sync, right? So you don't have to, it's just something that works in the background. You know that you're updating your own environments and that data is traveling across in real time. So it's not like missed emails, it's not like calendar invites, it's like real-time data sync. And something that Carlos said, just the data integrity improves, right? So they're usually we've come across clients where they're having errors in copy pasting, right? Imagine if you, I don't know, copied half a log and pasted it into a ticket, and that doesn't give you the full context. So it's just little things like that that eventually contribute to lost efficiency, right? So having a reliable integration in the middle of this and just doing it all in an automated way is just amazing. And some of the tertiary benefits here are just general planning, right? So if the end users have a very clear visibility on how their tasks are progressing through in the MSP space, right? That's a very good tool to have on your end to do risk mitigation, right? You know if a project is delayed already, and you can kind of foresee some roadblocks that might be coming in. So all in all, that just contributes immensely to increased efficiency and all those nice metrics that Carlos already mentioned.
Okay. So I think it's also a good bridge to actually see something in action. We talked about like the use cases, we visualized some of the use cases. We talked about how ITSM integration can actually like solve all those communication problems. Now let's look at the back end and see what's happening there. I give it over to you, Majid.
Cool. Hopefully my screen is visible to you. Not yet.
Not
Okay,
yet.
should
There
be
you
now.
are. Yes.
Yep, now we see it.
Cool, thank you. So the way I've set this up is I basically set up the second use case in the slides that we were speaking about, right? So there is a central MSP, which I call the MSP head HQ, and that is working off a ServiceNow instance. Now we've got two clients, aptly named the Rocket company working in Jira, of course, and a software company working in Azure DevOps, right? So those are your two end clients who would want to liaise with the MSP in the center and kind of get the project management flow going. So just as we said in the slide, the whole story starts by the end client in their own environment creating a requirement. So build me a rover, right? So that we start off with, apologies, don't want smileys. So we start off with a high level requirement. I'm going to rush through it, right? So the end user working in their own Jira environment has created an epic which they want serviced with the help of the MSP, right? There's no detailed requirements. There's no breakdown of tasks. There's nothing like that. Now, what the integration does in the backend is that it picks it up and it knows where to take it. And it takes it to the ServiceNow instance pretty much in real time. And once it's done it populates these fields, giving you the actual incident number that it created. This is the link to the ticket, and the current priority is in planning phase in the instance. You can actually click on the link and just land into the MSP ServiceNow instance. This is just a demo. In reality, you wouldn't have access. Otherwise, there's no point. I'm just going to move it here. Right. So I have I have a caller information there, so I know where it's coming from. Now let's change a few things out here. So let's say the MSP now changes the priority to high, marks it as in progress, and assigns it to an engineer. Right. It asks me to add some internal notes. That's the ServiceNow thing. Now, once the MSP has made all these changes, these all automatically flow back to the client's Jira system, right? So his Jira system should update with all that information about the assignee, about the priority, and even the epic itself went to in progress in case you missed it. Right. So what happens from here on in, it's also actually pertinent to note that my work note, which is supposed to be internal communication within the MSP, never made it across because we filtered it out. Just an added advantage of having a nuanced integration, right? So whatever data you want to send to the other party is totally under your control, right? So let's say we get started with it. Don't mind my spelling. So basically, we've added a comment to the main incident saying that we're starting work on it. And now actually how they do it is that, okay, they create subtasks for body work and maybe engine work. Right. So just imagine a high-level requirement came into the MSP. It divided it up into tasks. It started assigning things to it. Let's say we assign a critical priority to this one, but I want to leave the other one as a low priority. Maybe I didn't save it. Okay, so what's the picture now on the client end? So on the client end, if I go over to the same epic, you will see that it would also get those subtasks listed out again pretty much in real time. And you would also get the comment which we made with my spelling mistakes. We are starting the work on it. Now, these subtasks are also synchronized, right? So if I open these ones up, so when I go to the first, Okay, we've landed on the bodywork. So when we go to the bodywork, we see that the priority is critical. That's great. And when we go to the engine work, we see it as low. Now, how does this communication flow? Guys, can you please mark this as high? So the customer doesn't like it. The customer thinks that the engine work needs to be a higher priority. He just on his own ticketing system kind of makes a comment. Now, if I go over to the MSP side, whoever is working on the engine task should be able to see that comment. So if he comes into the note section, he will see the request from the customer saying, can you please mark it as high? So let's do that. We mark it as high and we made a comment. Right, and now again, you get the idea. The comment and the priority change should flow back again to the correct the correct one. Bodywork was already there, so the engine work. So I got my comment over and the priority would be on its way as well. So this is how you kind of develop that bidirectional synchronization way of working with the client. I'm not going to wait for this. Right, and let's say at the end of the thing now, let's go back to our incident. Right, so at the end of the process, you complete the tasks, right? So the MSP kind of completes it, marks it as closed on their end. And again, this is the crucial planning aspect that I was referring to earlier as well. Like the customer needs to have this visibility, right? They need to know how many tasks are completed, when they're completed, what the pipeline looks like, and all that. So once they mark this as complete, this should reflect back on the status of the tasks itself. So one of them made it through, the other one would be on its way. Let's refresh again. Okay, the system's being testing today, but that's okay. We'll give it a few seconds. Okay. Again, I won't wait for it. It'll be on its way. Now, how do we close the whole topic, right? So once the subtasks have been closed and the MSP is ready to get the ticket closure, it can ask the client, can you please look at the ticket, close it. Right, so just imagining the workflow that the MSP has completed the subtasks, it's closed the subtasks, that goes back, that information is all visible to the end user. And now the MSP just asks the customer to kind of close the ticket because right now it's in progress on the MSP side. Right, let's go back here. Okay, and I get the comment over from my side, and obviously we can continue communicating, or I can just mark the project as done. Now, what this should do is, again, this should go back into the MSP and flow back, and this should resolve the actual incident, and that's how you get to closure, basically, right? Now, obviously, this is one iteration of the way that I've implemented it, but there's quite a lot of things here to note. Right, so taking exactly the same flow, because the MSP is kind of working in exactly the same way, let's take it to Azure DevOps. So let's say it's another company who's working in the Azure DevOps environment, and we will follow the same flow. Now, this time I'll go a little bit quick. So we start off by creating a high-level requirement as an epic, and this time we want a rover app built. And we want it specifically for iOS, let's say. Again, the same rules apply. Because the integration is aware that it needs to pick up this requirement and take it to the correct MSP, this should automatically flow. So if I refresh now, I should get the incident number that it created and the link again to that incident. So let's copy it and let's open that link to get to the high-level requirement, right? Obviously, we differentiated between callers and organizations because we need to know, the MSP needs to know which client it's coming from. So you can differentiate between them. And again, the same patterns apply. I can update things, they'll go on the other side and all that. But what I'm keen to show you is how the subtasks will flow, right? So let's say we have a subtask for the interface design, and we assign it to the software group. And let's say we have a DB design. And we assign it again to the software group. So just as in the previous example, these subtasks were flowing back into the Jira, parking themselves underneath an epic. That is exactly what should happen in Azure as well. So Azure uses the related work items out here, And both those tasks in real time came over and parked themselves underneath the correct epic. And then, the whole workflow is kind of exactly the same. So I don't really want to bore you with that. This time, let's say we want to change a little bit. So what we want to do this time is that the subtasks can also be closed, like the status can be actually triggered by the end client itself. So in the previous example that I did, it was being done by the MSP itself. They completed the work, they closed it, that went back to the end user. Let's flip it around a little bit, right? So let's say we want to change the status out here, and we would like the MSP status to change, right? It would require a little bit of configuration. So let me just quickly go to my sync engine, and I'll quickly go through how you'd be setting this up. So I'll go into my connection, which is already made. And instead of scripting it out, I'll just do it conversationally, or try to do it at least. So what I'm requesting is create a status mapping such that, I think it was called new, active, and closed on the Azure side, maps to new, work in progress, and closed, complete. All right, let's see what it does. So what I've just asked my integration engine to do is to create a status mapping, which would pick up the source statuses, new, active, and closed. That was in Azure, but ServiceNow doesn't have it. So I have the ServiceNow statuses marked out as well. And what the AI does is it would read my current configuration and kind of suggest me a code snippet out here, which I can just quickly look at and accept. And we would need to change, I think that should be it. It did it in an interesting way, but yeah, that should be it. And we're good to test it, right? So I've done a prompt, got a response, and we'll quickly test it out to see what it does. Now, if I mark this as active, which was the DB design task, this should now flow over to my, yeah, exactly. So my DB design is now work in progress. And let's say we just close both of them. So let's say we close this. And let's say for good measure, we'll close the interface as well. And that information I expect to sync back to my subtasks, right? So just to kind of give you a flavor of how easy or how difficult, however you consider it, it would be to like kind of just configure a bit of a mapping within the tool. So I hope you got some interesting ideas and some solid like a use case around what we were just discussing earlier. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Majid. Okay, so let me share my screen again. Oh, so like we walked through like the use cases, we see it in the back end. We looked at like what SPK is also doing, and but we know at the end of the day, ITSM integration is not a walk in the park, right? So there are some challenges that we need to be prepared for when we want to start implementing it. So Carlos, I start with you. What are those challenges that we should be prepared for?
Well, let's talk about the flow that I like to do when we're picking up with a new customer. First, we like to map out their ecosystem, make sure that we understand all the tools and the communication flow. And then we start getting into the goals. Really, what were the issues that we're trying to solve? Was it just pure communication? Was there an SLA problem? Were clients having problems with visibility? Maybe there's an audit and we have to provide some more audit trails. So we want to make sure that we understand what our goals are. And then we select the right integration tool. In this case, we love Exalate. So we brought that over. And then the most important thing is start small. We picked a small use case as a pilot. We set up some basic syncs, tickets and status and comments, and we measure the impact. And then once that works, we expand it to other clients. And then there's training that is associated with it. So some of the challenges that happen, we've hit, sometimes there's access and permission things that we need to get squared away. API tokens need to make sure that's set up. Make sure when you're talking, there is folks in there who are responsible for compliance and governance. So make sure that you're aligning with them for their clear policies on who owns what data is allowed to flow between the various, the MSP and the customer. And, communicate, document, and test is really the trifecta of things we need to get done.
Of course. Right. And Majid, how do you prepare our customers for the integration?
Something that I really liked in Carlos's comment was start small and then grow it, right? It's there's no magic switch here. There's no magic wand where you just switch on a button and just the whole thing starts working. What we usually like to recommend, and we want to follow, but it actually depends on the MSP at the end. We go into a very detailed requirements gathering phase, right? Where we sit down with the client, number of hours, we map out what field is going where. If I change the status on this side, how do you want the workflow aligned on your side? And we basically try to map out everything on paper and then start thinking about edge cases as well. I really urge clients a lot to think about edge cases because they're part of life and you don't want your integration to break due to that. So you need to kind of think about all those ahead of time. So for me, again, I cannot resonate enough what Carlos has said. Do a detailed requirements gathering and then start very small. Start small, get an experience of it, get a feel for it and see what works for you and then slowly build it up to the bigger piece.
Amazing. I think that's already like a good playbook to start with. But to just wrap it up, Carlos, just if you can give us 3 first steps that any MSP who wants to implement like in, ITSM integration for the first time, what are those first 3 steps are for them to take?
Well, definitely, as Majid said, map out your system first, because you're going to be going at the fine grain level of field to field and the workflow, the direction, what is allowed to go, what isn't allowed to go. So map your system. I always believe also to have a business goal associated with it. I want to attack the SLA issue, right? Maybe things are being promoted out there and we're not seeing the percolation across our clients for, vulnerability thing that we need to patch. So testing that, simulating, running some real test cases, checking the audits for that to make sure we can provide that full traceability for our auditors. And then, back to the what Majid said, start small and then scale, right? Start small, test it, crazy. And then once you have that working, expand it, and then finish up with making sure that you're training your team and communicating to your clients that this is now something that you guys have. It's a differentiator for you as an MSP to be using something like this. So it's definitely a good business perk, if you will, to get more services. It helps with your SLAs and ultimately your CSATs.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. That's like a good wrap up of this whole thing. Is there anything else, Majid, you want to add before we get to the Q&A section?
No, I think we've covered pretty much the length and breadth of it. I wonder what's in the questions.
Great. I think we had just like a couple of questions in the Q&A section. So just like we have added them to the slide as well to go through. So if you templatize the model for different MSPs, I think this came from you, Majid. How do they ensure data security and privacy when integrating multiple ITSM and across different customers or companies?
Yeah, I can try to answer it, but yeah, Carlos would be good as well to answer this, I think. So Carlos kind of referred to templatizing this a little bit as well, right? So it's a very good question, right? So a lot of clients, a lot of MSPs that I work with prefer this, right? It's not on us as the integration partner to push a model upon the MSP, but because the tool itself provides enough flexibility there that if you don't want to templatize it, it's fine. Now, what does templatizing kind of mean? So the MSP kind of defines an interface on their end as to what data they would like to see coming into their system and what data they would like to see going away to the other side, right? Once you kind of define that in a robust sort of a manner, then whoever the end client is who you are onboarding into the mix, they already have an answer there. You already provide them that, okay, the XYZ is what I want to see from your side, and this is what we'll be sending out. Is that okay? And the huge advantage of templatizing this, and we've learned this over the years, is that the MSP is able to onboard customers very, very quickly, right? If there are no technical challenges or compliance challenges within the customer end, the actual onboarding experience becomes really, really fast. So I'm quite a big fan of templatizing it.
I'll add to that the consistent structure and the field level mappings and filters and permissions have to be fully isolated per client in your template. That's one of the things that we think about. The template is a starting point. So for SOC 2 compliance, we will make sure that the framework is supporting that. The data is encrypted in transit. Every party has full control over what's sent or received. There's no centralized database storing any sensitive customer data. So, there's internal due diligence that we make sure, definitely patient information or things like that has to be scrubbed and make sure that those things are carefully reviewed. The template is a starting point. And then from there, you need to do your due diligence to really align with your customer.
Okay. Again, expand from there, right?
Yep.
All right. I think somebody answered this question in the chat, but it's good to ask. How about integrating ITSM with other systems, right? Like CRM or billing systems or, I don't know, DevOps and everything else?
Sure. I mean, Escalate is really flexible. So while we often use it to integrate with ITSM, Jira, ServiceNow, or Zendesk, we can also extend those to CRMs like Salesforce, HubSpot, or even other billing systems. Why? Because for us as an MSP, the service lifecycle doesn't end at the ticket. Sometimes we need to ensure the support case links back to a customer record, which can then link back to a billing, and maybe even kicks off a renewal conversation. So it's the flexibility of Exalate allows you to go across these other systems to take advantage of the workflow beyond ITSM.
Indeed. Indeed. So like I don't come across this that much in the MSP space, but we've got a huge client base on Salesforce itself, right? And yes, you want those that entire cycle of opportunity, sale, and the client creation to be kind of reflected and captured on other systems. So we do have these use cases. These are usually very nuanced, and each customer kind of wants to like do it exactly the way they want to. So it again, like the flexibility kind of allows you to do that.
Mm-hmm. Good. I think this one is for you, Carlos. Are these ROI success metrics documented anywhere? Yeah.
We share that data with our customers. So it's, your mileage will vary depending on the customer, depending on where they're starting from, depending on the volume of information that's going between, depending on how many projects are being synced. So we have sort of what we call our technical business review model inside SPK, where we're presenting data like this because we're trying to get more business. We're trying to improve our CSAT. We're trying to expand beyond our initial footprint. So we provide that data to our customers.
Amazing. So, and that's, I would assume that is also a perfect way for you to onboard like new customers as well, to convince them that, okay, you need to actually like integrate with our system, right?
Absolutely, because again, this gives us a differentiation against other MSPs because our integration with our system and your system is tight, no silos. So it's logical, right? Well, there's no delay between getting responses. SLAs are going to be better, and again, the pushing out critical issues, which to me is deep in my heart for compliance, is something that I always put to the front, saying, look, we do this better because of this enabler with Escalate.
Perfect. And yeah, I think that was the end of the questions. So yeah, thank you everybody for sticking around till the end and for being with us in this webinar. Here are like the contacts as well. In case you have more questions for us, feel free to reach out to Carlos, to Majid, or to myself. And hopefully see you in the next webinar. Have a great day and night.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye.